Plain Possum Podcast.
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 Plain Possum Podcast. Hello.
Hey,
What's your
welcome
morning?
back to Plain Possum Podcast.
Damn it. Okay, we'll start over. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you? It's been never mind. Sorry, let's start over again. I was like gonna answer my own question.
How are you? Let me tell you how I am. How am I?
Good question. I don't know. I haven't really checked in with myself.
Oh my god, I had the worst dream last night. It was that we were staying in like a travel Airbnb that was like at basically what seemed to be like a giant lesbian party, which seemed cool.
Yeah.
But then things turned for the worse where our travel Airbnb left, and I had asked Marcia to get my computer because it was like a sketchy ladder coming down the bed, and I was like, oh, can you grab my computer? And she's like, yeah, I'll come back up and grab it. But then the Airbnb left, and so with my computer, and so then I was trying to find it, and we got separated in a crowd, and then I ran into lava. And people were like, I saw people get engulfed by lava, and so then I had to slide down in this like watery lava that wasn't like, it was hot, but it wasn't like scalding, but the really bad lava was coming.
Lukewarm
So I slid
lava.
down, to find Marcia, and I found her, and she was just like chilling on these steps reading a book, and I was like, we have to go, there's lava coming. Also, you totally forgot my computer. And so I woke up kind of mad at her this morning.
Aw. But I mean, she didn't mean to.
I know. Well, and she didn't actually do any of that.
Yeah, that's true.
You
It was
ever
all
have things like that where you're like mad at someone even though like they didn't actually do any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, I was kind of mad at the person in my dream this morning. Like, there was someone that was like rifling through this dumpster, and they were making a lot of noise. And then I realized that it wasn't a dream, and there was someone rifling through the dumpster outside of my bedroom window.
Oh my god, that I can hard relate to that, where you're like, what is that sound? And it's like in your dream, but it's actually in the real world, and then you like somehow bring it into your dream.
Yeah, totally. And I also I don't understand why someone's like, it's 4 a.m. It's the perfect time to go into the middle of an apartment complex to this dumpster that's surrounded by dozens of apartments and go rifling through the trash right now.
Yeah, I mean, they must have really needed what was ever in there.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was probably cans, those deposits, 10 cents. It really adds up.
I think it does. I wish that I kept my cans, but I always put them out so someone else can get them. It would be nice of me, like my next door neighbor, like separates them, and
you just like let people separate them for themselves.
Yeah, I this is like everyone is seeing the horrible side of me right now.
Yeah, I've been collecting my cans and saving them so we can go to Mexico over spring break.
Nice.
Yeah. Slow process.
It's like that, like in elementary school when you like sell candy or like wrapping paper for your like school trip.
Yeah, totally. Only collecting trash.
It's the same. It's the same. I was really good at selling wrapping paper. / I just had one neighbor who really liked buying wrapping paper. So
yeah, we have like a crafty neighbor that's super helpful. I'm not a good salesperson at all. Like I feel like I will talk people out of like using me as an option for whatever they need.
You're like, can I give you a list of these other people's names?
Yeah. I know you're asking me directly, but I just can think of a bunch of reasons why I would do this, and then you would hate me. Or something.
Yeah, well, that's a good lead-in for what we're going to talk about today. So I did ask you to do something, and I didn't go with someone else.
In fact, you didn't go with someone else so hard that you circled back a year later and you're like, so are you going to finish that or not?
Exactly. Yeah. So I asked Kacey to do like a little artist video for my website, and it has been recently finished. It was a long, arduous process. Actually, yeah, I'm curious because you said it wasn't that arduous; it just took a while. So, yeah, I'm so happy with the way it turned out, and I'll say the things I want to say, but I think this is a good lead in to talk about how yeah, when people want you to do something and you're like, me? No, not me. Like, what about anyone else but me? And then, yeah, how it's easy to play possum hard
Yeah.
when you're doing something for someone you know.
Yeah, well, actually, I have to correct you too. It's not even that you asked me to do it, it's that I offered because I was like, I'm so bored. I need a project. Will you let me make a video about you? And yeah, and then I think I got overwhelmed with it. And many hairstyles later, it's finally done. And it's kind of funny because I look at it now and it's like, it doesn't even look like you. You still had your like long mullet.
I know that
And
mullet is so glorious.
yeah. But it was something like it just felt like at some point the whole project felt overwhelming and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I have to like put it away. And then I was like, I'll get to it next week, I'll get to it next week. And then all those weeks turned into a year, essentially. And then you're like, where is it? And I was like, oh, I guess I could do it. And then yeah, I opened the project back up and it was almost done. I just needed to tweak like the volume and like do some color corrections and add some photos in. And it was almost done. So I think I just got overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I feel like we were like dual playing possum because I think like I am remembering now that you were like you did ask, but I was interested and I had shown you some videos like that my friends had on their website and I was like, "Hey, like do you think you could do something like this?" And then kind of some time went by and I think you were kind of thinking about it. And then you're like, "Okay, yeah, I want to do it. Like I need a project outside of work or whatever." And so but then like the thought of like when after you finished it, I was like, don't ask her if it's done. Like because I was like then I have to like then somebody will watch it and see me and so it was like that feeling of like I really wanted it and but then also I was like no I shouldn't want this it's too vain or it's too self-indulgent or whatever. And so I was like, I'll just like quietly wait and see what happens. So I feel like I played into the possum role of I was like, we were just playing dead next to each other and like seeing who was gonna like
Yeah, like
break first.
yeah. But I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. And I remember also being like super stoked to get started because I was like storyboarding, and I think I told you this when we were at Highland the other night, but like the opening sequence of it was like directly inspired by the opening sequence in Clerks, that Kevin Smith movie. And I was just remember being like, oh, this is gonna be so sick. And I think I got like when people get so excited they puke, I think I kind of like did that. But like I didn't puke, I just kind of stopped working on it. This is so great, I'm not even gonna do it.
Totally. I have like several projects just behind me that are like that of like it's like the idea like is so exciting and then you're like what if I mess it up or what if it's not what I think it's going to be or and I imagine like doing it for someone who you know well is like sort of ups those stakes of like, versus like I feel like when someone I don't know well wants me to do something or buys my work, I'm like, great. Like, and then when like a friend wants to buy it, I'm like, no, you don't want that.
No, I can tell you a whole bunch of other people you would rather hire to do that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Maybe that's probably not the narrative for you, but like I often feel like that imposter syndrome when it comes to like making videos. Because I think I have like I've done a lot of like my own learning around it, and like made a lot of things just developing my own style, and I don't think my style is necessarily like anybody else's, and especially things that you see like on YouTube or I don't know, on some of these like smaller documentary platforms. And I'm also selling myself short because I think it's good in its own ways, and it's like uniquely mine. So I'm trying to get over that, because I think that I think it's like uniquely mine, but also like watching other artist videos in preparation and during the editing phases of your video, I was like, oh, like people do things like this, and it is valid, and people are paying to like have their stories told in this way. Because I feel like if it's not, things aren't hyper polished, there's not like drone shots and things in like crazy like color graded formats. It just like, well, is it worth anything? But I think there's also an element of storytelling that like you either have it or you don't.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting hearing you say that, because I think about our conversation we just had with Forrest. That was the last episode, and just how, um, he was saying, oh, well, I'm a skateboarder, but I don't really feel like a skateboarder, and I'm like, you're still skateboarding at like 40 years old, and most people like stop, and
Yeah.
so I think, like hearing you say that is interesting, because like I do think of you as someone like, who makes videos and makes really good videos. And um like the me playing possum was never my doubt in your ability. It was my own, fear of being seen, and someone actually like looking at the video and then being like, oh. And like I think actually the same sort of thing of like, because I know you well, I know, and I've worked with you and done podcasts with you, and like, like I did that podcast with your work podcast, Closing the Gap, and like listening to that, I was like, oh my God, like Kacey totally got me. And like, this is like, like, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And like, I think you're so talented at bringing out like the people's story. And like, that's why I was super excited to do the podcast with you, is like, you are just so good at that. And like, that I think is this innate ability that you see people and see, and then you're able to bring it out in this way that's like really subtle, kind of like when I watched the video when it was done, I was like, I don't even remember saying this stuff, and it was like so cool. I actually cried when I watched it the first time, because it was like seeing seeing myself through my friend's eyes, basically, because it's like, you can be like, I'm trash, but then your friend sees you and they're actually like, you're pretty cool, and like I like hanging out with you, and your work is good. And like, so then when you see that, it's like, oh, it was emotional for me, of like being able to be like, whoa, like, yeah, that is how I feel about my work. And I don't even remember, like, I was so comfortable with you that like I don't remember saying some of that stuff. Not that I was like nervous. It was like that I was just like so comfortable that you were able to like bring out what is truly there for me, or whatever. I don't know. I feel like I'm not making sense, but
I think that
yeah.
makes sense. And I appreciate you saying all of that, that it's nice to, I think it's always nice to like get compliments and stuff. But I feel like it was also like a really great opportunity to work in a safe space like that, because I'd made a number of videos before for other people, like professionally. And I think one of the things that I really took away from it that I didn't learn in other situations, where it's more of like, okay, like I'm going to hire you, we're going to meet up on this day, we're going to do the thing. There's like maybe a couple of meetings, but pretty much it's like, strangers working together. And but I hadn't made something as personal as like making an artist video for somebody else. And what I think I took away from it was the need to really get to know somebody beforehand. Because, like the podcast, like Closing the Gap, and, you're listening to me get to know somebody and like how they are operating in their careers and their educational paths. But I think that is like, I would want to do that before than making a video for somebody, because you have to know all these little things. Like, there was only all that content to like fill in all like the B-roll and stuff, because I knew about like your processes and things that you do, and it was like, oh well, we could show this or yeah, and just kind of thinking about like what are the prereqs to actually making something that feels good to put out, because I feel like in some of the situations where I would be working faster, I put out something and be like, well, I mean, technically it's done, but like, I don't think there's any like, I don't mean to sound cheesy when I say this, but like, there's like no soul in it. Like, it just
Yeah.
is what it is. We can't like redo anything. So yeah, I think it was a good learning process, and just like, oh, this is what I need as a filmmaker, or like someone that's like creating a video professionally for somebody else that is going to then be like their marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. Yeah, because I think it is, especially, like it's one thing maybe doing like, I mean, but most people's work is really personal, but it's like, I think art in particular, like when you're showing people's art, it's typically pretty vulnerable, and it's like, oh yeah, like you want to get to know this person. And so, yeah, but it makes sense. Do you think you would do another one, or like, are you interested in doing more? Because I feel like you're really good at it.
Yeah. So I would love to do more. I think kind of the goal of my career is like to be a storyteller, and I think that it is one of the modes that I use that I really enjoy, is using my camera to tell a story. And personally, I'm like a lover of video, so it seems like a natural kind of combination of, storytelling and video work. And especially, I really enjoyed doing the artist video, because of, I think, just the nature of what we're talking about, and it being a more interesting story for me to tell rather than something that was more advertising or something like that. Because I feel like I think about these things in a marketing sense, because my professional background is in marketing, and I really hate selling things. So when it's more of like, let me help someone show everyone else who they are and what they do, like that's much more at my alley. So long answer short, I'd love to make more like artist videos and capturing who these people are and what they do, and like why you should care about them.
Nice. Well, you heard it here first. Kacey is available to make your artist video, and
Yeah,
it
hit me up.
may take less than a year, but no promises.
Yeah, it won't take a year, I swear.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it was a really cool process, and yeah, I just feel really grateful that, because I wanted to do that for a while, but I think one, I don't think I felt connected with my work like as much as I do. And then two, it's like I've been working. I think this podcast has really helped me, of just being working towards like people actually seeing me, like, like I think for so long I've just been like quietly doing woodworking in the corner, and if I can go and hang out with friends, and all those friends just don't know what I do, like that's my preferred situation. I have known certain people for like years, and they're like, I actually don't know what you do, and I'm like, great, like keep it that way.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah. I hate talking about work like in social settings.
Mm.
I think I think for me, and I think this is something I've been realizing recently, is I think I had this conversation with some people that I met up in Portland when I was teaching with Yuri recently, and it's like I think in a field that is, I mean, like, I don't know. I hate the word male dominated field. Um, because
Yeah.
A, it's just gross, and B, like, I think almost every field is that way. And
Mhm.
so, and then people are like, oh, but woodworking is worse. And it's like, maybe, but I don't know. Like, I think one, it's like, that's what you're seeing. Like, you're seeing men doing woodworking because that's who's visible. But I don't know that that's actually true.
Yeah.
Um, so that I don't actually like to say that, but I think my experience in the field, particularly when I am like around a certain type of older man who does woodworking as a hobby, um, and not all, but there's like, and I'm trying not to like be really like generalized, but I think I'm trying to figure out how to say this without being like offending people, but whatever. I think there are certain people who are like um in order for them to interact with me, like they have to think that I'm playing,
Mm.
basically. Because for them to like see me as a professional and see me as someone who actually knows more than them, probably, it's too much for them. And so,
Yeah.
like, the way they manage that, and I think, honestly, I think this is really true. And that's why I don't like to be like, oh, this is such a woodworking thing. Is like, I think it's true in so many fields. And especially happens to young women. I have a friend who is a civil engineer and like, like is like being flown around in helicopters to like look at the LA fire damage. Netflix is doing a documentary on her. She is like hardcore badass, but she'll go into these situations and like she had a man show her a magazine and was like, have you read this article? And she started laughing because the photo in the article was her. And she's like, you're joking, right? And he's like, no, like I think you would get a lot out of this article. And she's like, but that's me, and it's like, so I think I have had that same feedback. I remember, and that's what I mean. It's not just woodworking. When I was like a backpacking and river guide, like I was in the building and somebody was like, are you the cleaning lady?
Oh.
And then or like people would come up to me when I was the guide, they would be like, where's your instructor? Because like one, I'm small, and two, like I always look younger than I am. Like now I don't, I know I'm like Uncle Grandpa, but when I was younger, I looked younger. But so it's like I think I've just gotten that feedback that like you must be playing, you must
Mhm.
not be professional. And so for me to acknowledge that in myself is to like go against all this feedback I've had. And in some ways, like it's just easier for me to like be like, yeah, I'm playing, and even in social settings with my friends, they think that I don't work or that they have no idea what I do. And so
Mhm.
it's like, it's easier because it feels hard to like prove my competence, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I think I feel like that's interesting. Well, two things. I just want to back up that yes, there is a representation gap in men and women or like gender minorities in pretty much everything that's technical in some way. A lot of those industries, and I go back to YouTube a lot because it's like my main source of like getting information and um I look at anything that I've learned from there, and I would say 90% of the people that I watch end up being men, and it's because it seems like in part of kind of playing it down like I'm just playing. There's also a different tone that gets taken from like female creators. But yeah, I think it's funny because you bring up a lot about this idea that you're playing or like people don't understand what you're doing and like take it seriously. And I think, I think back to it because I feel like one of our first episodes, I also had mentioned that because I asked you, how do you get through making all this stuff and doing stuff when you don't get paid? But then it's like, you do get paid. And it was one of those things that, earlier, like 6 months ago, I didn't even really understand it. And so I think part of it is just also working towards creating better visibility and like representation of like, this is what people do, and like, this is what it looks like. Because I think part of it is, how could someone possibly not be a cog in the 9 to 5 grind?
Mhm.
It doesn't make any sense, because there's no one's out there like showing it to you. And I feel like a majority of the people that you do see, they are like, they don't talk about how they got the funds to be able to, or how they continue to get the funds to be able to like live a lifestyle that is non-traditional.
Mhm.
So it's just like this magic thing, and it makes it easy for people to like discount people that are creating or making, or like entrepreneurs, because it just doesn't make any sense to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that is true, and I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Of like, I had this conversation with someone, and I actually want to have her on the podcast, but it's this new-ish professor at OSU that's teaching furniture design, and we were talking about mentorship. And like, for me, like, I did go to school for furniture making, but then I apprenticed with two different people for about a year each person. And it was really important for me to do that, both to learn how to like run a business, but also like I didn't have a shop,
Yeah.
like, and they let me work on their work, but they also let me do my own work. And I think, like you said, is like people can't really understand even how to make those opportunities for themselves. Of
Yeah.
like, and it's like it's outside of currency, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, how did this happen? Like, how did you make that happen? Or like, did you pay? It's, I think, part of why it's hard for me to convince people that I'm not playing is because I have to have that conversation of that there's a whole nother currency that you don't even know exists,
Yeah.
where
We're living outside of capitalism here.
yeah. And, like a lot of the tools in my shop are things that, um, I bought used, or like the people who I worked with gave me tools that they didn't need, or,
Mhm.
like being in the Woodworkers Guild, there's opportunities to like buy tools super cheap. I see these other people who do have to work really hard and have to, whatever, make a lot of money, because if you buy all of your woodworking tools new and set up a shop, it is really expensive, and many people have to take out business loans and things like that. And
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I didn't have a shop. I did not have a shop for the first, let's see, when we moved here in 2016, I started building out a shop. So, and I started doing woodworking in 2010, maybe.
Hmm.
So, for the first 6 years, I was working out of other people's shops. No, that's not even true. Like, yeah, 7 or 8 years. So, it
Yeah.
wasn't really until we moved into this house that I had like a full shop. And um,
That's fascinating. And, I feel like it was a through line of like some of the things you've also said is, that I don't think we've touched on in this podcast, is the sacrifice that you make, the trade-offs that you make to be a maker in some professional capacity, or be learning skills to become like, I don't want to say better maker or artist, but, like, to continue to grow. It might be a financial sacrifice where you're having to pay tuition or buy tools, or rent studio space. And that means, oh, maybe I can't hang out with my friends all the time, or I can't just sit on the couch every night and watch Netflix till my eyes fall out of my head, or I can't take as many vacations as I like. There's also this element that I think people need to recognize of like, it's not just all fun and games. There's a lot of work and sacrifice that goes into it. It's choosing what you prioritize to
yeah,
be important to you, and putting that above all else, rather than, thinking that, well, this person has their cake, they're going to eat it too. It's like, no, there's like, also, you're not recognizing that, I'm also sacrificing things that I could be doing with my time, because this is what is important to me, is to be teaching and making, or making videos, or drawing, or going to school, or whatever it is that you're doing to further your art and making career.
hmm Yeah, I think that's really true. And I think it is, Marcia always laughs because, like, it is true that a lot of our friends, like, don't really understand what I do and they think that I just, like, don't work. Because, like, Marcia laughs because she's like, you're the hardest working person I know and you work way more than me. Like, Marcia works 37 hours a week and she gets 3 wellness hours a week to make up for the 40. And so, she, like, when she goes to the gym, that counts as one of her wellness hours. So, I mean, obviously, like sometimes she ends up working more, but her job is really kind of like do 40 hours and then go home. And it's like, I sometimes work like 70 hours a week, like,
Hmm.
and uh, so yeah, it is like Marcia laughs because, and I don't, I think for me, especially in social settings with friends, is like I have to prove myself and my competence at work a lot
Hmm.
and like and so I just don't have the energy for it to do it in a social setting. And so I'm just like, I don't I'm not going to do it. And so if you think X about me, then I'm just going to let you keep thinking that until something shifts for you. And so like and in some ways I think that practice has helped me soften in my professional setting too. Like I feel like slowly I feel like I've not really processed it. I'm like real life processing this right now, but it's like there is something that has shifted in me recently, and that I don't feel like I have to prove myself as much, and I'm just like either people are going to get it or they're not, and like there's nothing I can do to change their perception of me. And it's wasted energy, right? It's wasted energy to try to prove that to people. And I think working with Yuri has been really helpful in that with me of like, I get the opportunity to work with this amazing woodworker and she just doesn't spend any time, trying to shift people's perception of her.
Yeah.
And uh, I really appreciate being able to witness that. And so I think um,
I,
that
I,
go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, like, I think that's really powerful because I think, it kind of comes back to where we almost where we started of just like shifting your perspective on how you view yourself and your own skills and your own work. Um, so like once you're able to just be like, okay, like I know what I'm doing, you can self-validate in that way. It doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks because like the work is gonna speak for itself. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what some hobbyist that's coming in to use your tools like really thinks about you because it's like, well, I'm here and you're there. And not that it has to be this big divide, but there is nothing to prove. And when there's this feeling like there's something to prove, then it's almost kind of like I feel like you're letting yourself, like you're losing the battle. And I'm also fighting with that idea because I feel like it's not the best analogy for the situation. Like I don't want to bring like violence and like a win lose kind of attitude to this whole idea, but I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. And I think battle is a good word because I think it has been such an internal battle for me and like that I do like I think, you know, even like I think even you and I have experienced this in the shop of like where when I come with the energy of trying to prove myself, I am not as good of an educator. Versus if I just come in and I'm comfortable and I know that the person I'm working with understands my skill, then it's easier for me to relax and be more comfortable. But I think what I want to work towards is just bringing that calmer energy to everyone, regardless of whether they,
Hmm.
respect my skill. Like, and why is that a requirement, anyways? And I think because like what you were saying is like as long as you know then it really doesn't matter, right? Like, and
Yeah.
how can someone know if I'm like, I think this is the thing that's for me, and this is like comes back to playing possum and comes back to your video, is how can someone know what your skill is if you're just playing dead and you're like, why don't you understand how amazing I am?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And Yeah, no, I think it's funny that I don't know, they bring that up because I feel like you are to, if you feel like you have to prove yourself, then being defensive, I mean, with that defensive energy, like, can be more prominent. And I think that also affects how people respond to you. Because if you like come into a situation like, your chest puffed up, you're like, listen to me, I know what I'm doing. I think people are like, Jesus, like, but if you're just like, actually, like, this is the way to do it, and you're like calm about it or whatever, then I think that oftentimes people can be more receptive. But it is what it is. But I think it was also funny that you brought up woodworking together, because we were just in the shop together last night, and you came to show me something. I was like, am I in trouble? And no, I critique though. Like, I really appreciate how you came up and showed me what was up on the table saw last night, because I was like, oh, okay, no, I got it. Yeah, cool. So
Yeah, but sometimes I come in like really hot, and I think um it's like habit, of like I'm coming in guarded because I have this internal belief that I'm gonna have to like explain why this is, versus just being like, hey, like this would be a better way to do it, and here's why. And which is like, that is received so much more, versus when I come in, I'm like, what you're doing is not right. Like what you're saying of like, am I in trouble? And I think um yeah, I'm still working on that. Like, I actually got some feedback from someone else about this, of like, yeah, just trying to navigate. I feel like I'm at this point in my career where it's like I have this like fork in the road, uh, which I hate that phrase now, because that's from the fork in the road email that federal employees got. But I have this option to go either way. But and I think the way I want to go is to be just really comfortable in like my ability as an educator, because like I've been teaching for a long time, and like um my ability as a woodworker, and like I just think that will be a better experience for the people learning from me. And so, but that is going to have to take so much, like you're saying, like self-validation, which is the hardest thing. And I think it's like, just to bring it back to the video, right? Like that's what you were working on, of, oh, I don't feel like I'm the person for this or whatever. And like just understanding that, like, like for me, I never had any doubt in that. But like it really doesn't matter, even even when someone is confident in you, it
mm-hmm.
really doesn't matter, because it's your own opinion of yourself that matters.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it's like a destination that you get to and then you're there forever. I think it's one of those things that like you kind of have to keep chasing it and working on it and pursuing it, because I just look at the process of making your video, and I remember leading up to that, like I felt like in authority, not like a police officer, but like I was the authority in the way of like, I know my vision, I know my skills, and I know how to get from point A to point B to get all the things that I'm going to need to finish this project. And then, after sitting and editing it for so long, I felt like less of an authority, because in that time, I'm like, I saw so many things that I was like, oh, this person's so good. And since my stuff doesn't look like their stuff, that means that this is not good. Like that kind of equation, I often am like trying to work around in my head. And so thinking about ways that we can validate ourselves on a daily basis, or like as needed basis, to, I don't know, just to stay in our power, and be creative, and be just know that we're enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think it is true. Like I think maybe that's part of it too for me, is like I just want to be on the other side of this and be like, I am fine. And
Yeah.
that it is easy to get knocked off of that, especially when you see other people's work. And I do think, like, having the thing that has been helpful for me to remind myself recently is like, and I think about your video, is like, you captured my work so well, and so it would be weird if you made a video that was like looked more polished, because my work isn't that polished, and so
Mhm.
it's like, it was like when I had finished that table and I was like, ugh, like I don't know how to take a picture of this, and then we like put it in that washed up floodplain at Finley, and I was like, that's it, like it. I like that sort of like, you know, the push and pull of like polished and not polished, and I think you captured that so well. And so it's like, it depends on, and like a different artist might have a different video, right? You're going
Mhm.
to meet them there. And so it's like, especially if you're doing videos of like other people's work, is like it probably will shift a little bit. You'll always keep your style, but it'll probably meld based on what the people's work is. So I think you did such a good job of like meeting my style too, not like with the video.
Yeah, I appreciate that you say that, and I'm so glad that you like it, because it's, at the end of the day, it's like the whole point of my job in that situation is to just represent somebody else. Like, I'm just like, this is them. This is what they want you to see. Or like, this is, I guess, I don't know how I see them, because I feel like when we were talking about the dialogue, you're like, I don't even remember saying that, but I remember we sat down for like a half hour or something, or like 40 minutes, and I was just asking you question after question after question. And so it was just, we just did like a deep dive on your psyche and how you think about making, and like what it means to be you in your career, what you're after. So I don't know. It's all just about like, at the end of the day, like representing yourself well, or representing someone else well in their video or whatever you're doing. So
Yeah, but like if I tried to make that video, it would be like total trash, So it's like, like you have, like you're saying, like you have like the lens of like seeing people and telling the story that is so powerful. So, but I know you have a hard stop, so I want to wrap
mhm.
up, but we're going to put the video, because I'm sure you've all been wondering about this video. We're going to put the video on Playing Possum YouTube, and then it will be on my website. And this is good for me because I've been playing Possum to put it up. And because I'm like, I don't want anyone to look at me.
Yeah, totally. And we should link it into the show notes.
Yeah. And yes, we will link it into the show notes. And yeah, thanks for having this conversation with me. It was fun to talk. I mean, one thing I did want to touch on, but we'll have to do it another time, was like, I think just the funness of collaborating together
Yeah.
on that project. And
Yeah, it
so
was a really good time.
it was fun, and we've done that a couple times, and I just really appreciate that. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, thanks for the conversation, and thanks for listening. And
Yeah.
as always, what was everyone supposed to do?
Subscribe. You can subscribe to our newsletter. We should have one coming out sometime ish soon, maybe. We're working on it. And follow us on Blue Sky and Instagram and on YouTube. And like shoot us an email or comments or something. And I don't know, like let us know what your favorite kind of pizza is or whatever, so we know that someone out there can hear us.
Yes. To all of our 5 listeners, tell us about how you like to eat pizza. Yeah, and then also if you have friends that are artists or creatives, or just exist in the world, share the podcast with them, because I think yeah, some people have shared that it's been helpful to just hear these conversations about creativity. So
Yeah, totally. And I don't know, I mean, we're like kind of underground, but we're thinking about maybe going to some local Oregon prides to like, meet people and do maybe some projects or something like out in the field. So if you would like to see us, let us know so that we can like stop playing possum and like maybe fill out an application to booth somewhere.
yes, yeah, that's a good accountability call. So yeah, well, thanks everybody, and toodles possums. We'll see you
Yes,
next
toodles
time.
possums.